The massive arena on Proxima Station fell silent as Commander Jackson Reed stepped onto the polished obsidian platform. Thousands of alien spectators from dozens of species watched from rising tiers that circled the combat zone. The atmosphere felt heavy with anticipation, the air itself charged with the collective breath of an audience eager to witness what many considered a suicidal mission. Reed stood tall at 6 feet, his black tactical armor gleaming under the artificial lights of the station. The suit was Earth's finest achievement in combat technology, a perfect blend of flexibility and protection that had cost billions to develop. Its sleek design concealed dozens of microservos and impact-dampening systems that amplified human strength and reflexes. To the untrained eye, it might have looked like simple protective gear, but it represented the pinnacle of human ingenuity. "The human champion enters the circle of truth," announced Prime Arbiter Vostok, his translucent skin pulsing with blue bioluminescence as his voice echoed throughout the arena. Commander Jackson Reed of the Terran Defense Force now faces the undefeated champion of the Draconian Empire, War Master Corvus. The crowd erupted as a massive figure emerged from the opposite entrance. Corvus stood nearly 8 feet tall, his scaled body rippling with muscle beneath minimal armor plating. The Draconian's amber eyes narrowed as he assessed the human before him. His species had evolved on a high-gravity world, giving him natural strength that dwarfed that of any unaugmented human. For powerful arms ended in clawed hands, each capable of tearing through standard armor plating. "You've come far to die, soft skin," Corvus rumbled, his translator barely keeping up with the clicking and hissing of his native tongue. "Your kind hides in shells, thinking technology can replace true strength." Reed remained silent, his face hidden behind the reflective visor of his helmet. This confrontation had been months in the making, a critical political gambit in humanity's struggle for recognition in the Galactic Alliance. For 2 decades, Earth had been denied full membership, relegated to a probationary status that limited their rights and access to crucial trade routes. "The terms have been agreed upon," continued Arbiter Vostok. "Should the human champion survive for 30 minutes or force War Master Corvus to yield, humanity will be granted upgraded status within the Alliance Council." From the diplomatic box high above the arena, Admiral Tashida watched nervously. As Earth's representative to the Alliance, she had staked everything on Reed's abilities. "This is insanity," whispered her aide, Lieutenant Novak. "The Draconians evolved as apex predators. Even with our best armor, Reed is outmatched." "That's exactly what they're meant to think," Tashida replied, her eyes never leaving the arena floor. "Trust the commander. He knows what he's doing." The signal to begin came in the form of a resonating tone that vibrated through the station. Corvus wasted no time, charging across the platform with surprising speed for his size. His lower right arm swept out in a vicious arc aimed at Reed's chest. The human pivoted at the last moment, the massive claw missing him by centimeters. The crowd gasped at the unexpected display of agility. Reed countered with a strike to Corvus's exposed side, the armor amplifying his strength enough to make the Draconian grunt in surprise. "Interesting," Corvus growled. "Your technology compensates well for your weakness." For 10 minutes, they exchanged blows, Reed relying on the armor's systems to avoid the worst of Corvus's attacks. The Draconian was relentless, each strike powerful enough to shatter bone, but the human remained elusive, using the entire platform to maintain distance when needed. Despite his defensive strategy, Reed was gradually being worn down. Impact warnings flashed across his helmet display as the armor absorbed punishment that would have killed him instantly without protection. Microfractures were developing in the outer shell, and the power reserves were depleting faster than expected. "Your shell cracks, human," Corvus taunted, sensing victory. "Soon you will be exposed, and then we will see what humans are truly made of." The arena had fallen into a rhythm of cheers and gasps with each exchange. Most spectators expected to witness a quick execution, but Reed's unexpected resilience had captured their attention. Even the Draconian delegates watched with new interest as their champion failed to quickly dispatch the human as promised. After 20 minutes, Reed's armor was showing visible damage. A deep gouge ran across the chest plate, and the left arm's servos had begun to stutter after blocking a particularly devastating blow. Medical sensors inside the suit reported elevated heart rate and stress levels consistent with extreme exertion. "You should yield, Commander," Corvus offered, circling his opponent. "There is no dishonor in recognizing superior strength. I might even grant you a quick death." Reed finally spoke, his voice calm despite the exertion. "You misunderstand what this demonstration is about, War Master. Enlighten me, then, before your inevitable defeat." The human straightened, seemingly relaxing his defensive posture. "You believe our armor makes us weak, dependent on technology rather than natural ability." "It is obvious," Corvus replied, gesturing to the damaged suit. "Without that shell, you are fragile creatures, barely evolved beyond the prey species you once were." Reed reached up to his helmet, activating the release mechanism. The crowd fell silent as the protective visor slid away, revealing his face for the first time, calm, determined, with eyes that reflected not fear but calculation. "Then perhaps," Reed said, his fingers moving to the chest plate release, "it's time I showed you what humanity is truly capable of." The Draconian's eyes widened as the human began systematically disengaging his armor, piece by piece. In the diplomatic box, Admiral Tashida leaned forward, a smile forming on her lips. "Now," she whispered, "the real demonstration begins." The arena fell into shocked silence as Commander Reed methodically disengaged the sections of his combat armor. With each piece that fell to the platform, the tension in the air grew thicker. First the chest plate, then the reinforced gauntlets, followed by the shoulder guards and leg protection, all discarded with deliberate precision. Corvus watched in disbelief, his amber eyes narrowing with suspicion. "What trickery is this, human?" he demanded, claws flexing instinctively. When Reed finished, he stood in a simple black bodysuit that offered no protection against the Draconian's natural weapons. His physique, while impressive by human standards, appeared almost childlike compared to Corvus's towering, muscled form. "No trickery," Reed replied calmly. "Just a different approach." In the diplomatic box, Lieutenant Novak clutched the railing. "Admiral, he'll be killed. This is suicide." Admiral Tashida remained composed. "Watch closely, Lieutenant. You're about to witness why Commander Reed was specifically chosen for this mission." On the combat platform, Corvus let out a rumbling laugh that echoed throughout the arena. "Your species truly is delusional," he said, extending all four arms in a threatening display. "I offered you a quick death with your armor. Now you will suffer." The Draconian lunged forward with devastating speed, his upper right claw sweeping in a deadly arc toward Reed's exposed head. The crowd collectively gasped, anticipating the gruesome end to the human champion. But the blow never landed. Reed moved with surprising fluidity, ducking under the attack with millimeters to spare. Before Corvus could register what had happened, the human had slipped inside his guard and delivered a precise strike to a nerve cluster beneath his lower left arm. Pain shot through the Draconian's limb, temporarily numbing it. Corvus roared in surprise and anger, spinning to face his opponent, but Reed was no longer there. The human had already circled behind him, moving with a speed and precision that seemed impossible without technological assistance. "Impossible," hissed one of the Draconian delegates. "No human should move like that." From the Alliance Council's observation deck, High Counselor Jexthar turned to his human liaison, Dr. Elaine Harrison. "Explain," he demanded, his compound eyes reflecting the combat below. Dr. Harrison smiled slightly. "Commander Reed is the product of Project Adaptus, a specialized training program rather than genetic modification or cybernetic enhancement. For 3 years, he trained in a simulation chamber at 1.8 times Earth gravity, specifically calibrated to match draconian home-world conditions." On the platform, Reed continued to evade Corvus's increasingly frustrated attacks. The human's movements had a flowing quality, almost dance-like in their precision. He never attempted to match the draconian strength directly, instead redirecting momentum and targeting physiological weaknesses with surgical precision. You see, continued Dr. Harrison, we studied draconian physiology extensively. Their incredible strength comes at a cost: reduced mobility in certain joint structures, predictable attack patterns, and specific neurological vulnerabilities. Corvus bellowed in frustration as another of his powerful strikes missed its target. Stand still and fight with honor. Reed pivoted away from a downward slash that cracked the platform beneath them. Honor doesn't win battles, he replied evenly. Adaptation does. 25 minutes had passed since the beginning of the challenge. Reed showed signs of fatigue, a sheen of sweat on his forehead, slightly deeper breathing, but remained largely unharmed. Corvus, conversely, was growing increasingly erratic, his attacks wilder as his frustration mounted. The armor was never our strength, Reed explained as he sidestepped another furious charge. It was our limitation, a concession to diplomatic expectations. You all assumed we needed it to compete. The truth dawned on the spectators: the armor had been deliberate misdirection. By appearing to rely on technology, humanity had concealed their true capabilities. The armor's removal wasn't an act of desperation but the core of Reed's strategy. In the advisory section, Major General Hendrik Wilson watched with satisfied calm. As Reed's commanding officer and the architect of Project Adaptus, he had fought against significant political opposition to implement this unorthodox approach. The primitive human sheds his shell, mocked one Alliance diplomat to Wilson. The wise hunter allows his prey to underestimate him, Wilson countered without taking his eyes off the combat. Below, Reed continued his strategic evasion, leading Corvus through increasingly exhausting attack patterns. The Draconian's breathing had become labored, his movements less coordinated as stamina began to fail him. Your species values strength above all, Reed said, circling his opponent. We value efficiency. Why exert more force than necessary? Why build thicker armor when you can simply avoid the blow? Corvus charged again, all four arms extended in a grappling maneuver that would have crushed Reed instantly if successful. The human waited until the last possible moment before dropping and sliding between the Draconian's legs, coming up behind him and delivering a precise strike to a pressure point at the base of his spine. Corvus stumbled, momentarily losing sensation in his lower limbs. He turned, genuine concern now visible in his expression for the first time. You studied me, he accused. Reed nodded. Not just you. Your entire species. Your biology, your combat traditions, your cultural values. While you dismissed us as weak, we were learning everything about you. The timer displayed prominently above the arena showed less than 1 minute remaining in the challenge. The crowd had fallen completely silent, captivated by the unexpected turn of events. Even the Draconian spectators watched with a new wariness in their posture. You never intended to defeat me through force, Corvus realized aloud. Survival was the objective, Reed confirmed. And changing your perception of humanity in the process. The final seconds ticked away. Corvus made one last desperate lunge, committing fully to a strike that would have ended the contest instantly if it connected. Reed twisted away, using the Draconian's momentum to send him sprawling across the platform. As Corvus regained his footing, the timer reached 0. A resonant tone signaled the end of the challenge. The human champion has survived the allotted time, announced Arbiter Vostok, his voice betraying his astonishment. By the terms agreed upon, humanity's status within the Alliance shall be elevated accordingly. Reed stood tall, his breathing controlled despite the exertion. He extended a hand toward Corvus, a human gesture of respect after combat. The Draconian stared at the offered hand, then at the discarded armor lying across the platform. After a moment's hesitation, he clasped Reed's forearm in the traditional warrior's acknowledgement of his culture. You have much to teach us, it seems, Corvus admitted grudgingly. In the diplomatic box, Admiral Tashida smiled. And that, Lieutenant Novak, is how you win a battle before it even begins. The aftermath of Reed's survival sent shockwaves through the Galactic Alliance. As negotiations began the following day, Commander Reed found himself summoned to a private meeting with War Master Corvus. The Draconian's personal quarters reflected his species' values, austere, functional, with trophies of past victories displayed prominently. Corvus stood with his back to the entrance when Reed arrived, studying Earth's planetary profile on a holographic display. "Your world has approximately one-third the gravity of my homeworld," Corvus observed without turning. "Your atmosphere is oxygen-rich but would be considered thin by my standards. Your average temperatures would feel cool to my species." He finally faced Reed. "By every physiological metric, we should be superior." Reed remained silent, allowing the Draconian to process the implications of their encounter. "Yet you stood against me without protection," Corvus continued. "Explain this paradox." "Necessity," Reed answered simply. "Throughout our history, humans rarely had natural advantages. We weren't the strongest, fastest, or most resilient species even on our own planet. We survived because we had to adapt." Across the station, Admiral Tashida addressed the Alliance Council, her voice steady as she outlined humanity's position. "For too long, you've measured us by standards that favor naturally evolved advantages. You dismissed our technological achievements as crutches rather than recognizing them as expressions of our greatest strength, our adaptability." Back in Corvus's quarters, the Draconian circled Reed with newfound respect. "Your training program, Project Adaptus, I'm told, it deliberately simulated our world's conditions?" Reed nodded. "For 3 years, I lived, trained, and slept in a gravity chamber calibrated to match Draconian physiology. Every day, my body was pushed beyond what humans normally endure until adaptation occurred. And the others like you? There are dozens of specialists, each trained for different species and environments. We don't believe in one-size-fits-all solutions." Corvus stopped, his expression troubled. "You've been preparing for conflict with each Alliance species." "Not conflict, understanding," Reed corrected. "We needed to demonstrate that humanity cannot be dismissed based on our natural limitations. What looks like weakness can become strength through proper application." In the council chambers, tensions mounted as Admiral Tashida continued her address. Commander Reed's demonstration wasn't merely about proving individual capability. It was about illustrating humanity's approach to galactic citizenship. "By deceiving the Alliance about your true abilities," challenged Counselor Vrex of the Solarian Confederation. "By allowing you to deceive yourselves with your assumptions," Tashida countered. "Just as War Master Corvus assumed the armor was our source of strength, the Alliance has consistently underestimated what humanity brings to this coalition." As the political battle raged, Corvus made a decision that would alter the course of interspecies relations. He activated his communication panel. "This is War Master Corvus to the Draconian delegation," he announced formally. "I move to support humanity's petition for full Alliance membership, effective immediately." The chamber fell silent as the implications registered. The Draconians, who had been humanity's strongest opponents, had just become their advocates. "Your victory was never about physical combat," Corvus told Reed quietly. "It was about breaking our perception." Reed nodded. "Sometimes the greatest battle is against preconception." "You removed your armor to reveal your true strength," Corvus acknowledged. "Perhaps it is time for the Alliance to do the same." 3 days after the historic combat demonstration, Commander Reed stood on the observation deck of Proxima Station, watching as ships from various Alliance species arrived for the Emergency Council session. The vast viewports revealed the breathtaking array of vessel designs, from the crystalline structures of the Luminari to the biological-mechanical hybrids of the Vespid Collective. "Quite the gathering you've prompted," said a melodic voice behind him. Reed turned to find Ambassador Navrith approaching, her slender form moving with the characteristic fluidity of the Aquarian people. Despite being an aquatic species that required a specialized moisture suit to survive in standard atmospheres, she had been one of the few initial supporters of humanity's petition. Not my intention, Reed replied honestly. We simply wanted recognition. And now you have the attention of every major power in the quadrant, Navrith observed, her large opalescent eyes reflecting the starlight. Some are fascinated, others terrified. Reed frowned. Terrified? Of humans? Of what you represent, she clarified. A species that appears physically unimpressive yet overcomes biological limitations through sheer adaptability and determination. It challenges the entire hierarchy upon which the Alliance was founded. Before Reed could respond, his communication device signaled an incoming message from Admiral Tashida, Council Chamber, immediately. The vote is happening. The Grand Council Chamber was designed to accommodate representatives from all 27 member species of the Galactic Alliance. Tiered seating arranged in a perfect circle surrounded a central speaking platform, with environmental controls calibrated to each species' requirements. As Reed entered alongside Admiral Tashida, he noticed War Master Corvus already seated with the Draconian delegation. Their eyes met briefly, and Corvus gave an almost imperceptible nod of acknowledgement. High Counselor Jexstar called the session to order, his multifaceted eyes sweeping across the gathered representatives. We convene today to address humanity's petition for full membership status, a matter that has gained new urgency following recent demonstrations of their capabilities. The chamber quieted as Jexstar continued. For 20 standard cycles, humans have held provisional status within our coalition. Traditional metrics suggested they required more time to develop the necessary resilience for full participation in galactic affairs. War Master Corvus rose from his seat, towering over the other delegates. Those metrics were flawed, he declared boldly. They measured only what we valued, not what might actually matter for the Alliance's future. Murmurs spread through the chamber as Corvus continued. I have faced their champion without his technological protections and discovered that humanity's true strength lies not in physical power but in their unique adaptability. They study, they learn, they transform their weaknesses into advantages. Admiral Tashida stepped forward onto the central platform. For generations, the Alliance has categorized species based on evolutionary advantages, strength, speed, natural defenses. Humanity excels in none of these categories. Instead, our history is one of overcoming limitations. She activated a holographic display showing Earth's historical timeline. We survived ice ages without fur, crossed oceans without gills, reached our planet's highest peaks despite oxygen requirements. Our apparent fragility forced us to develop problem-solving abilities that species with natural advantages never needed. Reed watched as the delegates' reactions ranged from thoughtful consideration to outright skepticism. This was the true battlefield, not the combat platform, but the realm of ideas and perceptions. The demonstration between Commander Reed and War Master Corvus wasn't meant to suggest military prowess, Tashida explained. It was designed to illustrate a fundamental truth: adaptation can overcome any inherent disadvantage. Counselor Vrex interrupted sharply, are we to believe this was merely a philosophical lesson? Your commander deliberately concealed his true capabilities until the strategic moment. Yes, Tashida acknowledged without hesitation. Just as humanity has done throughout our history. When facing larger predators, we used misdirection. When confronting stronger opponents, we developed unexpected techniques. We survive, and thrive, by adapting to circumstances. The council chamber erupted in debate. Some delegates argued that humanity's approach demonstrated exactly the kind of unpredictability that made them dangerous. Others countered that such adaptability represented precisely what the Alliance needed to face unknown future threats. Throughout the heated discussion, Reed noticed Corvus watching him with intense focus. The Draconian's expression had shifted from the arrogance he displayed before their combat to something approaching genuine curiosity. After hours of debate, Jexstar called for the formal vote. The chamber fell silent as each delegation registered their position on the matter of humanity's full membership. When the results appeared on the central display, even Admiral Tashida couldn't hide her surprise. 23 in favor, for abstentions, 0 opposed. By overwhelming consensus, Jextar announced, humanity is granted full membership within the Galactic Alliance, with all rights and responsibilities thereof. One standard month after the Council's historic vote, Proxima Station hosted the formal ceremony elevating Earth to full Alliance status. The Grand Ceremonial Hall had been transformed with representatives from all member species in attendance, their diverse forms creating a living tapestry of galactic biodiversity. Commander Reed, now wearing the newly designed diplomatic uniform of Earth's Interstellar Corps, stood alongside Admiral Tashida as they prepared to accept the official charter. The Admiral leaned closer, speaking quietly. "You realize everything changes from here," she murmured. "The demonstration worked perhaps too well. They're fascinated by our potential now." Reed nodded slightly. "Better than being dismissed." "Be careful what you wish for," Tashida replied. "Several military delegations have already requested exchange programs with Project Adaptus. The Vespid want to study our neurological plasticity. The Solarians are proposing joint research into our psychological resilience. Isn't that what we wanted? To be valued for our contributions?" Tashida's expression remained serious. "Value can quickly become exploitation, Commander. We've proven ourselves interesting, now we need to prove ourselves equal partners, not subjects for study or strategic assets." Before Reed could respond, High Counselor Jextar called them forward. As they approached the central platform, Reed noticed War Master Corvus standing among the honor guard, an unprecedented position for a Draconian at a human ceremony. "Today marks not merely the elevation of a species," Jextar began, his translator conveying the formal tones perfectly, "but perhaps a reconsideration of what strengths truly matter in our shared galaxy." The ceremonial charter, inscribed on materials from each member world including Earth, was presented to Admiral Tashida, who accepted it with appropriate gravity. "On behalf of humanity," she stated, "we accept full membership with the understanding that our strength lies not in domination but in collaboration. Not in biological superiority but in mutual growth." As the formalities concluded, Reed found himself approached by Corvus. The Draconian extended all four arms in his culture's gesture of highest respect. "Your demonstration changed more than just humanity's status," Corvus said quietly. "It has prompted many of us to reconsider our own assumptions about strength." Reed accepted the gesture with a respectful bow. That was the greater purpose. Not to elevate humans above others, but to suggest that perhaps all our metrics needed recalibration. "I have been appointed to lead a new initiative," Corvus revealed. "The Alliance Council has authorized an interspecies adaptation program, designed to share techniques across biological boundaries. They want you as joint director." Reed looked surprised. "Me? I'm a military specialist, not a diplomat." "Which is precisely why this must be more than a diplomatic exercise," Corvus insisted. "You showed us that understanding biological differences isn't merely academic, it has practical applications that could benefit all species." Later that evening, as the celebration continued throughout the station, Reed found a quiet moment on the same observation deck where he had reflected before the council vote. Earth was visible as a small blue dot among countless stars, beautiful, distant, and suddenly much more significant in galactic affairs. Admiral Tashida joined him, handing him a data tablet. The official appointment. Joint Director of Interspecies Adaptation alongside War Master Corvus. "Will you accept?" Reed studied the document thoughtfully. "When I removed my armor in that arena, I never imagined it would lead to this. Sometimes the greatest victories come from surrendering the very things we think protect us," Tashida observed. "You discarded physical protection and revealed a greater strength. Perhaps that's the lesson humanity needed to teach the Alliance. And ourselves," Reed added quietly. As they looked out at the vastness of space, the implication was clear. Humanity had found its place not by dominating through force or technology, but by demonstrating the power of adaptation. In showing vulnerability, they had revealed their true strength. Reed finally nodded, accepting the appointment. "We came seeking recognition," he said. "Now we have responsibility." "That," Tashida replied with a knowing smile, "is the true test of strength." In the arena where it had all begun 1 month earlier, a holographic display now showed Commander Reed removing his armor piece by piece before facing the towering Draconian warrior. Beneath it, an inscription in multiple languages shared a simple message that had become something of a philosophical touchstone throughout the Alliance. True strength is not what protects you from the world, but what allows you to adapt to it.